Good morning, and thank you for joining us for the virtual 2021 City Update with Mayor Duke Bennett. I'm Kristen Craig, President of the Terre Haute Chamber of Commerce. It sounds cliche to even say that City Update looks different than in years past, but there's no doubt about it. From the government to the economy to even the way we're hosting this very event, sure to be full of lots of great updates. One thing is for sure, the role of the Terre Haute Chamber of Commerce continues as we work to advocate and support local business. The Chamber's mission of building business, building community has never wavered and never been more important. Now, more than ever, we're standing behind some of the initiatives created in the last couple of years. One being the CU and Terre Haute Community Plan, which we'll be hearing a great deal more about today from Mayor Bennett. But first, I have to mention all of our sponsors who are supporting today's event. Our title sponsor, AT&T Indiana, who has generously been the title sponsor for several years now, so thank you for their support. Also to our supporting sponsors, Union Health and Indiana State University. And we have several business supporters who have signed on this year: Garmong Construction, Indiana American Water, Brampton Brick, Terre Haute Regional Airport, RJL Solutions, and Duke Energy. Thank you to all of you for your support of today's event. A few housekeeping notes, which we've probably all heard a time or two on these Zoom calls. Please keep yourself muted during the presentation. We do have time for questions at the end, but please use the chat feature in Zoom to submit those, and then we will be reading them for the mayor to respond. Also, today's presentation will be recorded for anyone who's registered for the program to be able to review. You'll be receiving a follow-up email with the link to the video. Now let's get to the program. I'd like to now welcome Pepper Mulhurin, the Director of External Affairs for AT&T and the representative for the Terre Haute community. Pepper is a very familiar face to many of us in the Wabash Valley, including all of us involved in events and organizations. So join with me now as we welcome Pepper. Hopefully she's on.
Thank you. Thank you, Kristen. I am pleased to be here this morning representing AT&T. Our featured speaker is currently serving in his fourth term as Terre Haute Mayor, a position he's held since 2007. A Terre Haute native, Mayor Bennett was employed with Hamilton Center for almost 30 years before running for mayor. He and his wife, Pam, were also local business owners for more than 25 years. On a personal note, Mayor and Pam are the parents to 2 adult children and 3 precious grandchildren. As mayor of Terre Haute, he stays busy, as you know, serving on dozens of boards and commissions. Notably, he's a member of the board of the Indiana Conference of Mayors and the Urban Mayors Caucus. It gives me great pleasure to introduce to you today Terre Haute Mayor in his 4th term, Mayor Duke Bennett.
Thank you, Pepper. Well, good morning, everybody. I'm so glad you joined us here today. Appreciate the chamber and all the effort they put together to make this happen today. And so I'm excited to be here to be able to share a variety of things with everybody today regarding what's going on in the city of Terre Haute and really West Central Indiana. So once again, thank you, and thanks to all the sponsors out there that have made this possible. It's not advancing yet. Did it go off, you think? Yeah, it's on. Hang on here just a second. There we go, I think. Is it me doing that? Mm-hmm. Okay. Sorry about that. Normally I'm in front of a big room of people and don't have to worry about the technology too much. I wanted to talk about just the power of you just briefly here. You know, we received some funds last year to be able to promote people wearing masks in our community, and it's been very successful. But the Power of You campaign has been, you've seen it on TV, it's been on radio, and been in print. And the whole purpose of that, as I'll talk about with just COVID in general in just a moment, is to slow the spread and to give time for our healthcare workers to be able to manage the flow, those that need attention, and then 2, to get us to the vaccination part where we're at today. And so I just want to thank everybody that's helped make this program successful. The county Government has been involved along with the city government, and we've done a really good job. I'm very happy with what's happened over the last couple of months with talking about helping to slow the spread of COVID. I think you're controlling that. Okay, now. Okay, I'm not sure what's happening here, but we're going to get it straightened out.
You need to restart it, Jesse?
Okay, hopefully. Yeah. All right. So I'll just move back to that one if you're able to do that. Once we get going here, I think we'll be fine. We'll just...
Pause for technical difficulties.
Yeah. I think we run into this quite often with Zoom. And... I would throw some filler in, but I'm not going to do that right now. Well, I got plenty to talk about, and we'll fill up the time here.
There we go.
All right, so I just wanted to touch on 2020 for just a minute, just in a couple of editorial comments more than anything. As all of you know and have experienced, you know, COVID-19, social unrest, that kind of came out of the George Floyd situation and other, you know, the horrible things that have happened, political climate, presidential election. I mean, the whole year was just topsy-turvy for a variety of reasons. And we've all had our personal things that have happened to go along with all the stuff we've all experienced. And so when you kind of just reflect on 2020, a lot of people, and myself included, are glad it's over. You know, I started the year with shoulder surgery and ended the year by having COVID myself. And so it was just a crazy and really a year that you never knew what was going to happen next. But one thing I wanted to talk about was just our resilience and how we've withstood this, I think, in a very positive way. And I'll talk about a couple things here in a second. But just overall, when you reflect back and think what we've been through and see where we are today and some of the things I'm going to share today, it was an exciting year besides all the negative side of it. And so it sets us up really well as we move into 2021. And I couldn't be more proud of our community to step up and serve their fellow man. And it just really has been quite a challenge for all of us. When you talk about COVID-19, it's freezing again on me. I wanted to talk about just a couple things that, just to remind everybody kind of how it's impacted the city specifically. One is just our staffing. You know, we've had some ups and downs. At one time we had 35 firefighters that were off, either in quarantine or had COVID-19. And so we've had challenges, but I really applaud the City of Terre Haute employees who have worked throughout this whole time. We had a few people that worked from home that had some underlying conditions in certain situations, but mostly we've all been at work the whole year and have continued to serve the citizens of the community, even though we've been short-staffed many times, just like many of you and your businesses have been in the same situation. The revenue impact's kind of interesting. It really wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. Our MVH and LRS that are both based on gas tax, people stopped driving when we were shut down, and it began to come back at the end of the year a little bit. We're still not where we needed to be at the end, but it was better than I thought it might be. Property taxes were down just a little bit, but that was another area that there was a lot of concern about, and it didn't play out. Most people paid their property taxes. Our riverboat revenues are down. Every community in Indiana gets some of the gaming tax from what they call the riverboat gaming tax. That's down quite a bit for us. Just because people, you know, the casinos were closed. And then our sewer fees are down. So about a total of a $1.5 million loss for the city last year. So not as bad as I thought it was going to be, considering, you know, the situation that we were put in. I talked to David Patterson at the Convention Tourism Bureau. He said we had down 100,000 visitors. So when we talk about our tourism and those kinds of things and the people that come and spend their money in Terre Haute, obviously the innkeeper's tax was down. It was down about $800,000 last year. But then on the other hand, the food and beverage tax was up. So even though things were closed for a while, that seemed to have caught back up, and we actually did better from the perspective of the collections the county did for the food and beverage tax that go into the convention center project. It's a little slow on moving to the next one. Can you move it ahead? So we got some grants, and so this, when you start thinking about as the year progressed and Congress and what the state had done to help us with certain situations, us being municipal government, county government, et cetera, the city of Terre was very thankful that we were able to access several different grants as related to COVID-19. The first one we got was a Department of Transportation grant for over $4 million, and that's for operating and for capital. And so the way the transit funding works is that we're on a grant every year from the federal government, and they provide us reimbursement for our bus system. And so in this case, we were able to use these funds first before we tap into the regular grant. So it's not quite as good as it looks. It wasn't like just a $4 million, but we were able to tap into this at 100% reimbursement, where we typically get 90% reimbursement. And then we were able to purchase some new buses. So we have 3 buses on order and then 5 more buses that are being placed on order in the next couple of months. So we'll take delivery on all those in 2021. We've got community development block grant funding of $902,000. We provided some funding to Union Hospital, Reach Services, Wabash Valley Health Center, Hamilton Center, Catholic Charities Food Bank, and the Vigo County School Corporation. Mostly those last few were for food related, feeding our community. And so those were very important dollars, and that has all been dealt with. And so as we move forward, we're looking for some other opportunities. The CARES Act funding that came back to the city of Terre Haute for $1.9 million, those were to directly replace expenses related to COVID. And so that helped a lot with that $1.5 million loss that I mentioned earlier in revenue. Some of these funds can't be used to make up certain areas, but it kind of helped the overall budget. And so, yes, we had expenses, but some of this was actually a reimbursement for expenses that we wouldn't have received a reimbursement for because other than a change of rules in October. So that really worked out well for us. Then we have 2 other grants that we're currently working with. Another community development block grant, a phase 3. We received $342,000 that we're still working on the distribution of that, who we're going to give those funds to. And then an Okra grant that we're also working on a specific program that's due at the end of the month here, and we'll receive those funds in the next coming months and roll out that program very soon. You'll hear more about that one. Okay, you're going to have to advance it for me. Local economy. We had several meetings, virtual meetings with our local manufacturing segment. The chamber set those up, and each time we heard from our manufacturing companies here in the community that they were really withstanding COVID pretty well. Their orders were still coming in, their employees were able to work, so not a lot of COVID impact from an employee perspective. But, you know, we really didn't know how this was going to shake out for our manufacturing sector, which is a huge part of our economy here. One of the things we did hear from them was they were having trouble shipping their goods. So they were able to manufacture the goods, but were having trouble accessing trucks to be able to ship their product across the United States. Small businesses obviously have been impacted significantly. Those that didn't get PPP loans, or even those that did get PPP loans, are still struggling. And so that's the biggest impact that we've seen in our local economy is some small businesses haven't survived. There's some that are kind of just barely hanging on. And so the quicker we get through the COVID, I think we'll be able to, those businesses will be able to survive. But right now there's still a lot of unknowns. And when I say other, you know, we talk about the education sector, and I know they've all been impacted, our higher education, having to change the model and the way they do business, and, you know, fewer people, you know, moving around the campuses, and just, it's been a whole different change. And so obviously that has an impact on what else is going on. And local government, you know, we've all seen the impacts, and I've talked about the city of Terre Haute, but all of our other pieces of our economy have had there's no there wasn't any one effect they've all seen. And so, once again, we, survived it pretty well. I think our diverse economy has helped us with that. And we still had 23 ribbon cuttings last year. So when you think about a typical year, usually do about 54 or 55. So, it was half, but considering the year and the economic environment, still was able to enjoy the opening of 23 new businesses last year in Terre, Haute. The continuing and lasting effects, I'm still worried about all of these things, and we all hear about these things all the time, but the rent moratorium and when that, different states and different communities have different programs, but when it's going to catch up to someone, there's going to be people that aren't going to be able to get their rent caught up. There's going to be landlords that are not going to be able to do the things they need to do because they're not getting that rent. There's still an issue there that's still coming and looming. Utility bills, people are not getting all their utility bills paid and across the board. And so that's going to be another issue that's going to continue to linger on for quite some time. Mental health and addictions issues. I think a lot of this we won't even know probably for, another 6 months to a year what the impacts have been for people locked up, in their homes, not being able to go out. There's going to be a lot of mental health and addictions issues that are going to rise up that we're going to have to deal with locally. And then some delayed local option income tax revenues for the city government, the county government, and other entities. We're not going to see that till next year. So we kind of cruised through this year with some impacts, probably not any greater than last year, but then we're going to see a significant impact next year. We're probably going to lose somewhere between $2.5 and $3 million because of the delay, people not working, not paying their local option income tax, and then that affecting us in future budgets. I just wanted to throw this slide up there. I just got this week from the health department, sent this out, just to kind of show you the trend that we're going down. And what that means to me is that this is good. I mean, obviously, and what the governor had to say yesterday was positive, but we're not out of the woods yet. And so until vaccines become more prevalent, and a lot of vaccines are being administered each day, you can see the trend is downward for our positive cases in Vigo County. But we still need to keep our guard up. People need to continue to do those things, social distancing, wearing a mask, washing your hands. I know you've all heard that now for a year, but we just got to keep doing this until we can get to that herd immunity via the immunization. So I don't know if everybody gets to see this or gets this information, but I think the data that the health department puts out has been very helpful to me, and being able to respond to constituents who call in and ask about where's this going, where are we at today, and I'm really pleased to see that we're on that downward trend, and hopefully we'll be able to continue that as we move forward. Talk about our finances a little bit. So there's some key things here today I wanted to touch on. We've had 6 straight years of a balanced budget. So 2016 through 20, those years are all completed, obviously, 20 completed, and we ended the year still with a balanced budget. 21, our current year, was proposed and will finish as a balanced budget at the end of this year, unless something crazy happens that we're not aware of. So I feel really good about being able to tell you that 6 straight years, it's been a very long time, well before I was here, where we've had a balanced budget for the city of Terre Haute. Our general fund, which was our kind of a target area, several years ago we were negative $9 million that we ended the year, and last year in 2019, as you can see, we finished with a $1.2 million surplus, and this year, at the end of 20, $2.3 million surplus. So we continue to build reserves there in our general fund, which is our biggest fund, and I couldn't be any happier with that performance. Our golf courses and our group health were the only negative operating funds out of our 80-plus funds that we have at the end of 2020. And what I'll say about that is our group health will be corrected this year. A lot of it had to do with us switching over to a different plan and the carryover expenses we had. And so we'll be able to address that by the end of this year. And as for our golf courses, next year, beginning in 22, we will have balanced budgets for both of those. And we'll only be dealing with a negative cash balance from the past on those 2 funds. So we've made major progress on the golf courses on top of everything else. Last year was a good year for golf courses. So when you look at revenue, we actually exceeded the most revenue we've made on golf courses in a very, very long time, because it was one of the few activities you could do during COVID. We've continued to reduce our redevelopment and TAW loans, which is our borrowing that we do to kind of float us. We hit a max in 2017 of $9 million, and for this year, it'll be maybe, we may not even have to do $4 million. We'll see how things play out, but the max it would be $4 million. And then in 22, we'll reduce that again. Each year we try to reduce that by a little bit more as we build reserves. We recently completed our State Board of Accounts audit. They finished that up in December for 2019, and no significant deficiencies were reported. So that's about 4 years now of no significant issues with our audits that we do with our the State Board of Accounts. So very excited about that. And I want to mention tax cap credits again, because I'm going to talk about a couple of other things related to revenue down later in the presentation. But last year, our actual tax cap credits were $13.3 million. The estimated ones for this year is $15.5 million. So when you think about, we collect roughly $24 million in property taxes each year, and we're leaving $15.5 million on the table that the property owners get to keep this year in 2021. So assessed values are up here, property taxes are calculated from that, and your tax cap credits means you're saving $15 million from the city of Terre Haute that you're not paying in property taxes. So when people say the property tax caps are an old conversation, they're not. This is our highest tax cap credit since 2009. So it continues to impact our local government funding. Talk about a couple of refinancings we did. Wastewater treatment plant bond, we refinanced an older bond that we had. It became an $18 million issue. We didn't borrow any more money than what we owed, but it was an $18 million reissue, and we're saving $1.3 million in interest. As the bond market has been very favorable for municipalities to borrow money, so we went out, and it takes a long time to go through this process. But during this process, two things happened that were very exciting. Well, obviously saving the interest. We paid off the $3 million bond anticipation note that the county purchased from us a few years ago. So we're completely whole with the county. And S&P upgraded our bond rating for the sanitary district to a BBB plus with stable outlook. So that's a rise for us for that. But then in addition to that, we were able to get bond insurance, so actually our bond rating was AA, so we were only one notch from AAA. So that's exciting for the sanitary district. On State Road 46 TIF bond, we refunded, they call it, a $6 million issue, which is saving us almost $600,000 in interest. And we were also upgraded on our bond rating there to a BBB plus with stable outlook for our redevelopment rating. We have 3 different ratings for the city, one for sanitary, one for redevelopment, and one for the city of Terre Haute. And so we've not borrowed any money as the city of Terre Haute, so I haven't had a bond rating change since before I became mayor. But couldn't be any more excited than that. We're one notch from A, and we'll get there next time. COVID probably held us back a little bit on the TIF bond because they look at that as property taxes are in flux potentially. And so they really held everybody back that went out on the bond market last year using property taxes. Our new PD bond was the only new debt we took on, and which we did in December, a $12.2 million issue at 2.85% interest for 20 years. And I'll talk more about the police station in a moment. We're doing a comprehensive financial plan update. It's pretty much done. We're waiting on the final numbers for the end of the year and some new state estimates. And so in March, we're going to present that to the city council and show them what our next few years is going to look like from our comprehensive financial plan. And then we're going to need to do a sewer rate study again. We need to do these every few years, and we haven't done one in about 3 years. So later on in this year, we'll be starting that sewer rate study to take a look at our rates and our future expenses. There we go. There. Public safety. I'm just going to run through some quick statistics here for you. And some of this is COVID related. So total violent crimes in 2020, 451 versus 337 in 2019. So up 114 crimes or 25% increase. This is kind of across the United States. Most police departments are reporting these kind of numbers. A lot of it has to do with just COVID. People being cooped up in their house, struggling financially, you name it, it's created more violent crimes in many communities. And all of our areas, we're up some. I'm not overly concerned with that. Would expect those numbers to come back down this year somewhat, but it is, violent crime is obviously not a good thing, and to see a 25% increase is pretty significant. I know that we had 9 murders last year, but all of those were solved. Arrests were made in a very short period of time on each one of those, and that's the most we've had since I've been mayor. We typically average about 3. So there was some information that was put out about that recently that came from the prosecutor's office, but what I'm seeing across the state is the same increases or similar in cities our size, really all over. Our property crimes, on the other hand, were down by 413 crimes, a 12% decrease. You look at this and you say, well, a couple reasons. A lot more people were home, so we didn't have as many burglaries because people don't typically burglarize homes when somebody's there. Stores and other places of retail not being open or reduced hours cuts down on that kind of crime. Car thefts, just a variety of things because of COVID brought those numbers down. So overall, feel pretty good about last year. We've really worked hard and do a great job of getting people, get these crimes solved and taking care of our community, but COVID definitely had an impact here. In 2020, we got new tasers for most of our officers, replaced the older ones we had, new ballistic vests, first aid kits and PPE for all of our officers. We have body cams now in service that went in November for all of our uniform division. We bought 25 new police cars and a transport vehicle. And then in 21, we're doing some additional vehicle purchases, probably roughly another 25 police cars, a hostage negotiator vehicle, and a SRT team equipment unit. So those are both in process right now. Those 2 have already been purchased. We'll soon take delivery and put them in service. Go ahead. So I want to talk about the police department facility for just a moment. I want to remind people kind of how we got to where we are. The original plan was to build a 36,000 square foot building on the current site there at 12th and Wabash. We were going to build it behind it, tear down that building, and kind of go from there. The former Tribune Star building became available, and so it made a lot of sense for us to take a look at that. When we look back at what the cost would be to build that 36,000 square foot building, the original cost was going to be in the $9 million range back in 2015 when we first looked at this project. But when you looked at the 2020 costs that we upgraded and had our local folks tell us what the new cost to build that 36,000 square foot building is going to be $10.5 million. So when this Tribune Star building became available and it was 46,000 square feet, 10,000 square feet more than what we were going to build, and to purchase, remodel, and construct an addition, and then all of our furniture and fixtures and equipment was about $10.9 million. So it became a no-brainer that it was going to make much more sense to acquire this building to give us much more space. And so a larger facility, all of our furniture and fixtures were included. On the previous project, we were going to have to use some of our own money to do that from another source. And we eliminated 10 months of construction time. So right now, work is underway. We've had a couple little legal issues with the closing on the building that'll be resolved here very, very soon, and we'll close on that in February. But everything is in line at what we need to be. The city will own the building. There was a little bit of a conversation last week that came out. The city was always going to own the building. We own under different arms of like the current police station is owned by the Department of Redevelopment. This one will be owned by the Department of Redevelopment at first because we're using TIF funds to pay for it. But the city owns it. So all of those entities are the city. So just wanted to clarify that. I got some questions about that in the past week. So I'm excited about that project and can't wait to get our officers in the new building in August. So that's what we're shooting for. Okay. Terre Fire Department report data. Total calls in 2020, 11,258. So we were up over 2019 a little bit, not a lot. Our EMS calls were actually down a little bit. So 7768 versus 7911 in 2019. It was March, April timeframe when the state closed everything down. our call volume dropped, but it's picked up since that time. Our top 3 fire call categories that are non-EMS, I thought this was interesting. We had 1,200 reported fires. Not all of those were fires, but reported fires. We had 736 lifting assistance, where we go in and help people who have fallen or they have other issues, where we go out and we do this pretty regularly, and 588 motor vehicle accidents. So those were the top 3 categories outside of EMS last year in 2020. Our average engine ladder response time, so when a fire truck goes out, was 4 minutes and 12 seconds. It was up a little bit because of us having to prepare to go out dealing with COVID. Our firefighters and ambulance crews both had to put on the certain PPE equipment depending on what that call was going to be, and so it's increased our response time. We typically shoot for about 3 minutes and 30 seconds, so it was up a little bit. I'm not overly concerned about that. I think that will come back, but our goal still is to hit that 3.5 minute mark. Our average ambulance response time is 6 minutes and 34 seconds. So that's not too far off. I mean, typically the ambulances could be at the hospital and have to run to the south side of Terre. It's a little bit different than a fire truck. But once again, PPE and cleaning time after each call has added some delay on response. If we take an ambulance out of service, then one may have to come from a different part of the city. Our busiest month last year was November with 1,048 calls, and the busiest day was New Year's Eve. I'm not sure why, but we had 53 calls for service for the fire department on New Year's Eve. Our total 2020 training hours were 46,500 hours. I note that on here just because I need people to understand that we put our firefighters and paramedics through a tremendous amount of training. So just last year in 2020, we spent 46,000 hours training our firefighters. 2021 goals, we're working on 2 new fire engines, a part of our long-term schedule to replace an east side firehouse out on 46 area somewhere. We've had this in our plans for years. Now with the casino coming and additional development out there, we're going to have to develop that firehouse. So we're working through an overall plan, and we'll be doing some very specific formal planning this year, and hopefully we'll be able to start construction sometime later next year. New portable radios. Most of our radios are worn out. They're roughly 15 years old now. Hiring some new firefighters, we're in the process of doing, and improving our water rescue program. Infrastructure projects. Just wanted to remind people what we did last year for community crossings in 2020. We had an $829,000 grant from the state through community crossings, which we matched that. It's a 50-50 program. And we did Prairie Road, a section of Wabash Avenue, a section of Crawford Street, and then 13th Street up on the north side. We built those 4 roads. This is what we spend on our bigger projects, where we do more than just milling and paving typically. This year, we've got a $999,000 grant, so right at $1 million. And the 4 projects that we're doing are North 8th Street, Locust to Lafayette, where a section of the old interurban still remains in the middle of the road that has to be taken out. Locust Street from 13th to 3rd Street to 13th Street with some additional railroad tracks that were in the interurban there also. Fruit Ridge Avenue from Maple up to Fort Harrison. That road's in very poor condition, and it's 5 lanes up there. And then South 6th Street to Farrington Grove from Poplar to Hallman. Those were our 4 major projects, and we will have a few others, but right now this is just community crossings, and we're waiting on seeing how our revenues are going to be and what our pricing comes back for asphalt this year, and just a variety of factors, and we haven't decided what our other projects are going to be quite yet. Other infrastructure projects, I just want to touch on this just briefly. Our long-term control plan phase 2, this was a project that was underway last year, and we had to put a halt to it. We ran into some environmental issues with contaminated water. We were digging a very, very large hole down there to place our new main lift station in, and we pulled groundwater in with contamination in it from an adjacent property. And so we had to shut that project down on the main lift portion. The high rate treatment facility expansion is completed. So we've done that, and that's done. We did the piping work out on Prairie Road last year also and finished that up. But the main lift station component is on hold because we're going to have to either redesign how we're going to put it in the ground, or move it to a different location, one of those 2 things. So we're working with our consulting engineers to develop a new strategy for that before we move ahead. So, and I'll talk about this again in a minute, that we're going to renegotiate our long-term control plan. So the efforts that we're doing to redesign this piece of it that we still have to do will fold into a change in the plan that, as I said, I'll talk about in a minute. Lafayette Avenue got started last year. We expect it to be completed in August of this year. The remaining section of that is kind of through the busy part, the retail area, or the restaurant area up there. We're going to build one side of the road so we can leave the other side open, and we'll switch the traffic. So we'll always have traffic moving through there, but it's going to be a real challenge. So those of you in the north end, you know that that's a mess up there, and when this is done, it's going to be much better. It's an $8 million project to fix Lafayette Avenue, and then the county will be doing an expansion to the north in the future here. They're working on the final plans for that, and then that'll be basically then good all the way from Fort Harrison all the way up to the new 41 split. And then, as I mentioned earlier, our other paving projects that we haven't decided what we're going to do yet, I'll roll those out as soon as we make those determinations, but we'll have a few others outside of those community crossings. And then the 13th and 8th Avenue Railroad Overpass, we got a local tracks grant for that. There's an NDOT public information meeting on February 3rd. That information will be out through the media very soon. NDOT will put that out, and they'll be able to provide a lot of information about this project. The estimated construction start date right now is probably June, late spring, early summer, June timeframe probably, of 2023. We're moving into the final design, property acquisition, environmental work, all those things that have to be done prior to construction. So more to come on that. There we go. Department of Redevelopment, I want to kind of point them out a little bit. They've done quite a bit of stuff the last few years. Got to participate in the Wabash Valley Health Center ribbon cutting this past year. What a phenomenal facility for our community that serves people that just really don't have any money. They do accept insurance and Medicaid and those things now, but as they've evolved as an organization, but still, when people have no insurance and no way to pay for anything, they can go there and be helped. We were able to help them with $530,000 as part of their major remodeling and expansion project, and the building looks great on the inside and the outside, and so just thankful for their efforts in our community to serve those people in our community that just don't have the means and a lot of times don't go to the doctor or the dentist. Great thing. Next step, a local provider helping people with addictions. We were able to help them with some exterior building and HVAC renovations at the tune of $360,000. The project in Dean to Franklin, the 13th to 14th Street down south of College and east of 13th Street. We continue to work in that area. We spent $710,000 in that area, and we've got more to come that I'll talk about in a second. The Miller Parrott project on Wabash, that I'll touch on that again in just a second under economic development, but the city provided $100,000 of infrastructure improvements and some other things around the building to help make that project real. And then the Haute House Flat project on South 7th Street, we've helped with facade grant and with upper floor housing. We've always had a program for people to put apartments in that upstairs area, and so we were able to provide $155,000 to them to help with that project. And then design and acquisition is underway on Industrial Margaret from Rockwood Lane to Fruit Ridge Avenue. That's kind of out there from basically on the west side of Clabber Girl and back towards Fruit Ridge. And then we're putting a new water line in to assisting the water company to provide much more service to that east side out there. So we're partnering with them to get that done, which will have a huge impact on future growth on the east side. And then under 2021 projects that I wanted to touch on, 13th Street and 13th and a half and 14th from Washington and Dean, in that same section down there, south of College, east of 13th Street is another roughly $700,000-800,000 worth of work we're doing down there in Dean Avenue from 13th to 14th, two different street projects within that same section. And so another significant investment in that area. The Washington Community Center there at 13th and College is getting a new roof that's going to be paid for by the Department of Redevelopment, roughly a $200,000 project. And then out on State Road 46, we're going to have to do some improvements to some entryways into where the casino is going to be located, and some stormwater work out there, once again, to support the growth in that area. So the Department of Redevelopment has been doing a tremendous amount of work recently, always have, but have done some pretty significant things the last couple of years. Okay. Just some other information that I thought was pertinent. Condemned structures. You know, this is a big topic. I talk about this a lot. It comes up quite often. We got a call yesterday from somebody complaining about a house on the south side. Since I've been a mayor, we've removed 795 structures. In 2020, we demolished 67 houses, 3 garages, and 1 commercial building. So on our current list, there's 244 on there. That's down from 400 and some just a few years ago. So we've got 244 residential properties, 31 garages, and 3 commercial buildings. And our goal this year is to remove 100 structures. So we did 67 plus the other 4 last year of houses, and we hope to hit 100 this year. 35 are currently in process. So right off the bat, we had the hearing in December, and buildings are coming down as we speak. So we got another 65 to go for the rest of the year. I think we can get there. And our 311 stats, our total was down. So if you look at 2019, it was 11,128, and this past year was only 9,300. So I attribute that to a couple of things. One is we do a better job of fixing some things before they get turned into complaints, which, I applaud all of our employees for doing that. But just the overall call volume has been down. Even though people were home, and spending a lot of time, it's been kind of amazing that people didn't call us and complain about anything as much as they normally do, which is fine. That's what we want you to do, is call 311. So just find that statistic interesting. I would expect it to recover this year. Okay, thank you. City Hall parking lot. I'm going to have to move quickly through some of these here. Our project will be bid this spring. We're going to totally redo the City Hall parking lot. It's a project that's been in the works for a couple of years. Ran into a little technical snag with the historical designation of the courthouse that we were told we didn't have to deal with, but we did. And so that's been resolved, or in the process of being resolved, and it'll go out to bid. Turn to the River Phase 1 is a project in between the courthouse and City Hall that we're really excited about, and partnering with Art Spaces, and Mary Kramer's done a tremendous job of pulling this project together. A lot of private money and grants coming into this, but you're going to see Phase 1 take place there, and then there'll be additional phases on the government complex as we get people to the river from the downtown area. US 41 3rd Street lighting upgrade. Been working with Duke Energy for some time to make this happen. New poles are going in with LED lighting. I'm going to pull out some additional information about that later, but the project has started, so I couldn't be any more excited about getting that done. It's going to have a totally different look on 3rd Street. The GEAR Fund, Beale County School Corporation, the Governor's Emergency Education Relief Fund, we're providing some funds over the next 3 years, $550,000 from the city of Terre, Haute to increase Wi-Fi access. So it'll not only help the school corporation, but it just build out our Wi-Fi access and our broadband. This is a smaller piece of a bigger project that we're trying to do here locally. This next one I'm really excited about. We are buying some software. We're going to change the way we do business in engineering. So our permits, our licensing, accessing information about land and property will all be accessible to the public, via the internet. So it'll probably be, we're just now starting the implementation, and we'll have a lot of data to bring into the system, but we're going to completely change the way we do things. You'll be able to buy permits, do all your licensing online, be a very user-friendly system. So this is going to have a significant impact on how we interact with the public when it comes to those type of things. The Ray Park Clubhouse is a public-private partnership with Friends of Ray Park. They are going to be raising a significant amount of private money to rehabilitate the clubhouse, and there's some other projects that we're going to be doing at Ray Park in the future, but this is the first one. And so they're going to go out and begin to raise funds, and then we're going to do a little bit of a city match with that. and hopefully the next year construction can start on that project, but it all hinges upon those private dollars coming to the table. Brittlebank Park, we received a DNR grant for pickleball court expansion. It's a significant grant, so that project we'll put it out to bid later this year, and that work will start in the spring of next year. That's when we can access those DNR grant funds. A neighborhood revitalization project, I'm just going to mention that today. I'm going to do more of a rollout on this, but we are going to be doing a significant neighborhood revitalization project in that Hertz Rose, Rives Hole area. So basically from 13th to 19th and from 3rd Avenue down to Chestnut, we're going to be doing a tremendous amount of work in that area, infrastructure-wise, from the parks, improvement in Hertz Rose Park, with an art project. You know, I've mentioned a couple of these things in the past, but it's all coming together now. Some economic development, some new housing, some assistance to people who live in that area with their current housing situation. So I'm going to roll this out as a separate project just because I'm under the constraints of time today, but the plan is being developed. I'm feeling really good about where we're at, and I'll have a separate news release on this very, very soon. But I'm really excited about this, and we've got a lot of partners participating, and it's going to be a huge impact in that particular area. But then we want to mirror and do that in other areas of our city. Turn to the river and the 4041 Arts District signage. I flip to the next screen and just show you a sample of this. This activity, these signs right here that you see, well, some of these will be on the government complex to get people to turn to the river. But then as you see kind of on the other side, these signs will be downtown. And so our 4041 Arts District will have signage. We've got signage that we're going to be working with to point people to the convention center and the museums and those kind of things. But I wanted to give you a sample of generally what this will look like. This is still under development. We've got committees here that are working on these pieces, but this was a sample of just showing you a signage that you'll begin to find on our sidewalks, on our street corners, and a variety of other places as we begin to work on our tourism component of things. Some planning activities are currently underway. Our long-term control plan, as I mentioned earlier. So we are in a position where with these changes we have to make to the main lift station and then phase 3, 4, and 5, we're going to go back to IDM and the EPA and renegotiate our long-term control plan. There's no way we can finish the projects in there at the cost that they determined roughly 13, 14 years ago. So we're going back to the drawing board with them. So we're going to propose something in May of this year, first draft in March, and hopefully by May we'll have some idea of where we're going with this. But that's an important piece because the costs involved with this are, you know, significant. We've already spent, roughly $250 million on these projects, and we've probably got another $100 million to go down the road. And so we hope to extend that out until we can pay off some debt that we currently have and reuse those revenues to take out more debt. So I want to do everything we can to hold the line on sewer rate increases, but that'll be part of our rate study to look beyond probably 5 years down the road and 10 of what we'll have to do, well beyond what we're talking about today. Trail planning, working with the city and the county, Metropolitan Planning Organization, and Thrive West Central, a regional trail plan, but then we've got some things within the city we need to do to connect to some of these trails that are going to be created in the county. So we're working on that. A regional planning strategy with the Regional Development Authority, and then the governor just rolled out this next level regional recovery program. It's kind of based on the old regional cities, but as part of the COVID response, we're going to have an opportunity to access some funds here. And so this whole regional planning strategy, everything we've done to this point has positioned us to get significant funding moving forward, but we've got to stay on this. So that's going to be a huge thing you're going to hear much more about. The Riverfront Plan and Downtown Terre Plan, they're both expired now, if you will. You typically update those, and we're past those times. Both of those we're going to get started on this year. Following current legislative issues, TIF, they're looking at taking TIF money and moving it to education, to schools. That would be an issue for us because that means the money we typically use for infrastructure will shrink if these TIF legislation goes through. Annexation is a big one, not that we want to annex, but just watching how the state is determining how annexation may or may not work, and they've already pretty much restricted it where it's almost impossible to do, but I'm watching that closely. Business personal property tax, I was on a conference call with Senator Holden yesterday, who's the chairman of the Tax and Fiscal Policy in the Senate, and talking a little bit about that. I know a lot of businesses want to reduce or eliminate the business personal property tax, but if that goes away, what impacts does that have locally? When we looked at this a few years ago, when they were talking about eliminating it, it was a $5 million a year impact to the city of Terre Haute. It's probably greater than that now. And then I'm watching the executive orders to see how that plays out, restricting the powers of the governor and other executive branch members, including myself. I couldn't do much with the COVID anyway. That was one thing that I got a lot of heat for. As a mayor, you can only do an executive order for 7 days, then you have to go to the city council. Well, some of the things that the state's doing, they want the governor to go to the legislature. So I'm watching that closely to see how that plays out. The REACH Services Pathways Day Drop-In Center that I talked a little bit about earlier, where we provided some funding to them through the COVID relief, $300,000 came through that COVID relief fund that was to reach out. One of the areas they wanted us to target was the homeless population. So we were able to do a project with REACH Services, where they've acquired a facility now and will be doing a significant amount of work on that building and to make it a day drop-in center for the homeless. There'll be a lot of services there, and you're going to hear more and more about that, but early summer opening. A 12-point strategy. There's a lot of activity going on up there. I'm excited about that. I want to continue to be helpful as city government. And so I put that up there only because there's a lot of energy and a lot of activity up there, and I think that's going to be an area of growth from an economic development perspective. Greenhouse gas inventory, we're working with IU and ISUs providing the interns, but we're going to be doing a greenhouse gas inventory for not only the city of Terre Haute government, but the entire city. And so we're going to take a look at some things that will help us as we move forward about what those impacts are. And then the Solid Waste District provided a grant to the city and the county last year, and we bought 3 pieces of equipment, and I wanted to acknowledge that. We're buying a new dump truck with fully loaded to deal with snow removal and all that, a new Bobcat with multiple features on it, and a chipper. So we'll help continue to clean up the city. All these are targeted to cleanup related activities. Next one. Economic development. I'm getting towards the end here now. The VA clinic, if you've been out behind Walmart and seen the activity there, it's a $40 million project coming along very well. They're going to serve 10,000 veterans a year out of this facility. The Miller Parrott Lofts, the former Lighthouse Mission project on Wabash Avenue, they're finishing up. I mean, they're pretty much done with all the construction, and they're renting the facility out. $11.7 million investment. The historic Walnut Square project, the former Y on 6th Street, is a $9 million project. And at this point, there's no city dollars involved in that, but the project moved forward without those local dollars. The Parallax Bankruptcy, we know we didn't expect that, but I think there'll be a new opportunity there. That's all I'm going to say about that. I'm not too concerned about the future there. I'm hopeful that through this bankruptcy, there's already some interest, and I think there'll be a new opportunity there. Saturn Pet Care and Hearthside Bakery, they're both in the county, but obviously they're hiring staff, a significant amount of staff between the two. You know, we're probably talking 400 plus employees that they're in the process of hiring, which is going to help a lot. The Home and Center project, I was able to participate with the ribbon cutting on that a few months ago. Beautiful. It's absolutely, I just can't wait to go to a basketball game or another event there. It looks great. That was a $50 million project. Convention Center parking garage on schedule, as you've heard. That's a $30 million project, give or take, with some soft costs to be added to that. And then a future hotel is a whole new investment that hopefully will come within a couple of years. We believe that it will. It's just the market's not right there for that right this moment. The casino it's going to be approaching a $200 million investment. Groundbreaking will happen very soon. I'm told that. We're just waiting on some specifics. The F-35 training project at Home and Field, we're hopeful to hear something at the end of this month or the first part of February. If we were able to secure that, it's a $1.1 billion economic impact over the next 10 years to our community. Huge. 13th and Hallman property, we've got some interest in that. I just had a meeting last week and we're working on some things. And then the 12th and Wabash site, when we tear the police station down, and that site will be redeveloped. So as soon as we move out, we're going to get the building torn down and get somebody interested in getting that back on the tax rolls. That's the goal of both of those. Okay. Community plan. I wanted to finish up on this. Just spend just a couple minutes on what I just put a few things up here because these are as of today, the most important things that are happening. There is a lot going on with the community plan. So first of all, I'll say that I'm so thankful for all of the people that have stepped up. Each one of these committees, these pillars, have committees underneath them. Some will eventually have even more subcommittees. I mean, it just keeps breaking down to where we've got hundreds of people in our community that are participating in this community plan process. So when we say see you in Terre Haute, it's all about a variety of things that fall under these pieces that we all believe and know to be a fact are going to help build Terre Haute, Vigo County, West Central Indiana. Under the economic pillar, I just wanted to mention the business hub creation. We need a one-stop shop for economic development, workforce development, all these components that come under small business development, launch Terre Haute, you name it, all of these entities, the chamber. We're going to figure out a way for people to be able to access one destination. It doesn't mean these entities are going away. It just means that we're going to work collaboratively together. We'd like to see things fall under one roof eventually, but a common website, a common phone number, so we can point people in the right direction, help them bring a business, build a business, whatever that might be. That is the most important thing we're doing. There's other economic development things, but I wanted to single that out because this will drive us as we move forward. Under health and wellness, Hamilton Center got a $4 million grant to develop a community-based recovery center and mobile crisis that will help law enforcement and others dealing with emergency issues in the field. And so they are in the process of rolling this out, ramping it up and getting it rolled out. There are other health and wellness activities going on and some that are going to be pretty exciting to share with you. But this is one of the first things was help to continue to deal with addictions, people with mental health issues, giving us immediate access in the field to professionals. Under infrastructure, we're getting ready to start a housing assessment. As I noted at the bottom, which I'm going to touch on that again, but the last data we have is 2019, but 52.8, so basically 53% of our housing is owner occupied. That number needs to go up. When you're talking about 50-50 split, if you will, that number needs to go up. So one of the first things we're going to do is do an assessment. Bernice Hellman is helping to lead this charge with a variety of other people, but we're going to do a whole assessment, figure out where our particular needs are, and then figure out ways to help encourage that investment back in the community to provide more owner-occupied housing. That's some things we're going to do with the neighborhood revitalization up in the area I described and in other areas too. It's all about having more people to own their own homes, but to upgrade our housing as a whole. And then our UDO, which is, it's a Unified Development Ordinance. So it's a universal approach to zoning and just guidelines about how we do things. And so we started this process back in 2008, 2009, and it kind of died off. We're going to, as part of the community plan, we have got to develop this where we have the same zoning rules and the same requirements in the city and the county both. We have people that bring business to Terre Haute and they get a different set of rules in the county versus the city, and we just all need to be on the same page. So this Unified Development Ordinance helps kind of get everybody on that same level playing field. And so there's improvements we need to make that other communities are doing or are going to do that we've not done in a long time. We know there's zoning issues that we've run into a couple of things recently with mental health and addictions facilities and adult establishments that we've got fixed within this process. And so that's a real target area. Quality of life. As we did an original survey for the community plan, two of the most important things that came out was the Riverwalk and water features. And so this splash pad won't be the big water thing that we've talked about, but at Fairbanks Park, we are looking at those two specific projects. So we've got a Rose Hallman class that's working with us. The quality of life team is fully engaged with this. And that's just one of the first places we're going to start because there's some great opportunities to bring people to the river and then bring more activity to Fairbanks Park. And then a trail plan is another piece of the quality of life from a regional perspective. As I mentioned earlier, the city's doing its trail planning part with the county and these other entities to, the quality of life thing is just important to a lot of people to access trails. Talent attraction and retention, workforce development, you know, we were designated last year as a 21st century region. This is going to be where you're going to see the build out over the coming months and year. We've got to attract more talent here, and we've got to keep people here. Kids graduating from school or people who might want to leave for a better work opportunity, we want to keep them in Terre Haute. And then tourism last, the Gateway Beautification on State Road 46. That's the thing in front of us right this minute, because the airport has got a new strategic gateway plan. And so we're going to start on 46 because of the casino, the VA, the retail development, and the airport. And so you're going to hear much more about that. We've had multiple meetings, and the consultant for the airport is drafting some things down we can share with the public. But tourism is going to get big. So as we move forward to the convention center and the casino, the regional trails plan, the improvements to Fairbanks Park, the improvements across the river with the county park, and related to the Wabash Fish and Wildlife, all these pieces are going to come to bring many more people to Terre Haute and Vigo County. I want to just hit on those three targets. There's three things that I want to get out of all this. There's a lot of things, but our population in 2010 was 60,785. We've got to get our population up. We need more bodies. We need more people here. The owner-occupied housing that I mentioned earlier, we got to get that number up. And then household median income for Terre Haute in 2019 was 36,406. That number's got to go up. So all the things that we're trying to do will not only affect those three things, or probably 25 others, but those are my three specific targets that I'm really focused on. My final thoughts. Okay, so you're all probably ready to take a break anyway. So I couldn't be any more excited. I didn't put a lot of stuff in here because I couldn't fit it in. I'm probably as busy as I've been in a very long time, myself personally, and a lot of other people who are engaged in the community plan and what we're trying to do is Terre Haute and Vigo County, and as I said, West Central Indiana. It's all about this regional approach. In order for us to, you know, tap into a lot of resources, we have to have the regional approach. You know, I have to kind of drill down from the Terre Haute perspective, but I'm a part of all of this. And the more people that we get involved, the better. This isn't just a few people sitting in a room dreaming things up. It's about how do we move Terre Haute to that next level. Really, that's what this is all about. When you look back at COVID and all the other things that have hit us, you know, it's been difficult. I know that. Businesses are struggling, people are struggling, but there is such a bright outlook to where we're going. You know, I'm hopeful that as we get through these vaccinations, you know, we're waiting on more vaccinations to come to our community. The state has requested more, and it's happening. The health department's opening up that new location at the former Sears store at Honey Creek area down there at the new mall, or the renamed mall, let's put it that way. That's what I should call it. I keep wanting to call it Honey Creek Square. All these pieces continue to come together. Everybody's working really hard. We just got to kind of get through the rest of this COVID to put us in a position. And so we can't wait on that. We've got to continue to work on these things, and we're doing that. But I really see, and I'm not just saying it, I mean, we've not seen this much investment. When you add up all those investments that were made over the last couple of years, it's mind-boggling. We've not had that kind of investment in Terre Haute in probably 30, 40 years. And the people coming to the table, our institutions of higher education are such an important part of what we do, our manufacturing segment, our small businesses, all those things really create a dynamic environment for people to be in. And so our goal now is to attract them here and keep them. And so we can make some of those numbers go up. We can do some things that will make Terre Haute such a destination. It's a place people want to be. We're getting a lot of credit for the things we're doing in Indianapolis and elsewhere. Some things that people can't believe. We've got a casino. They can't believe we're doing a convention center. I mean, they're saying Terre Haute is just really doing some great things. And I attribute that to all the people that are working so hard to make this possible. I've had some great meetings with the new commissioners that have come on board and the former commissioner. And we're going to have some regular meetings that we're scheduling now to kind of kick off some new things. And I'm just really excited about the synergy and the collaboration and just, you know, with the state and the county and with the federal government. I mean, our future is so bright, it's really kind of mind-boggling to think about where we've come and where we can still go. So this is all about moving Terre Haute forward, supporting Vigo County and the state of Indiana to do those things that we need to do to build a better future. So I appreciate you being here today. I don't know if we have any questions.
We do.
Okay.
We have a couple of questions.
Happy to answer those real quick.
And if you have questions, submit them via the chat. So the first question is from Mark Bennett at the Trip Star. It is likely the city and county populations could be unusually undercounted because of missing college students who went home last March when colleges shifted to remote classes, and the Census Bureau paused its canvassing because of COVID. This is something we were talking about earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Any thoughts on what the impact is going to be?
You know, it's really hard to say what they're going to come up with. I've heard a lot of stories in places where, you know, counts were done by walking by houses and things and looking at old data. I mean, who knows what will come out of this? If the numbers go down, it means we get less money. So when we talk about the Department of Redevelopment as an example, it's all based on population. So we get less HUD money, we get less CDBG money, we get less, you know, lots of things. There's formulas out there just strictly based on the population numbers. And so I'm concerned about that, but you can't change it. I mean, there's nothing we can do to change that. It's going to be a federal issue, as it always is. We're going to have to lean on our federal officials to help us figure that out. If it comes back and it's some crazy number, low, I think a lot of people will have that issue. They're going to push back and say, does this need to be done again? They're probably not going to want to do that, but it's got to be fair and accurate. So I don't know what it's going to look like. I have no idea because they've not provided any feedback to us about what the numbers look like yet.
Okay, another question from Trent Kerr. If you have information about the rollout for vaccinations in terms of how many have been administered to date, who's getting the vaccine, and what can we expect over the next weeks and months? If that data is not available, if you don't have it, do you know where we can find it?
You can look on the state's website, and they have a lot of data about Vigo County. You can drill down to that. The health department puts that information out. You know, it changes constantly. But I did talk to Union Hospital this week, and they've done 8,100 immunizations up there. Health department's obviously doing theirs, and there's some other places where people have gone even outside of Terre Haute, you know, to get that. With it being 70 and over, and healthcare workers and public safety folks, I think it's moving. Maybe probably not as fast as I would like to see it, or maybe some others. But I think it's working. And so the key is going to be getting enough doses here, because it's going to be time for the second dose for a lot of those folks, let alone the first dose. And so right this second, I don't have exact numbers because I just haven't had time to research that this week. It changes daily. But you can find most of that on the state website and then with the health department.
That was all the questions that we had.
Excellent. So thank you for being here today. Appreciate your participation. And if you have any questions at all, let me know. And if you have any issues in the city, call 311, let us know about it so we can fix them. Have a great day.
I got a couple wrap-up things. I'll scooch over,
Yep.
if you don't mind. All right, again, thank you, Mayor, so much for doing this, for continuing to do this event every year. It's incredibly informational. And again, thanks to our event sponsor, AT&T and Pepper Multurin. If you'd like more information about the programs mentioned here today, including CU in Terre Haute, you can check your email. There'll be a follow-up link going out, or visit our website at terrehotechamber.com/CU in Terre Haute. We also wanted to mention that there's another great learning opportunity we have next week, and it's our annual Groundhog Day economic forecast. That will also be a virtual event featuring a variety of speakers, including Gary Dick from Inside Indiana Business. Registration is still open for that event on our website at terrehotechamber.com or by calling the office. And please do not forget to support the health and wellness of our community. Mayor Bennett talked about the Power of You campaign. If you'd like more information about that, or we have some decals available that you can put on the door of your place of business to remind your customers to mask up when they're out and about in the community, please call our office and we'd be happy to get those to you. Again, thank you for attending today.